Language. There are over 7,000 languages spoken worldwide, with Papua New Guinea being the most linguistically diverse country. Cuisine. The spice trade shaped the cultural and economic landscape of countries like India, Indonesia, and the Middle East. Clothing. Traditional Japanese kimonos vary by season, occasion, and marital status of the wearer. Architecture. Islamic architecture features intricate geometric patterns, as religious art avoids depicting living beings. Religious pilgrimage. The Hajj in Islam brings millions of people to Mecca each year, shaping Saudi Arabia's cultural identity. Cultural regions and landscapes. Latin America, known for its blend of indigenous, European, and African influences. Southeast Asia, a cultural crossroads influenced by Indian, Chinese, and local traditions. The Alps, home to distinct Alpine cultures with unique music, clothing, e.g., lederhosen, and traditions. Great Plains. Native American tribes like the Lakota and Cheyenne developed unique cultures adapted to the vast grasslands. Mediterranean. This region's culture is shaped by olive cultivation, wine production, and shared mythology. Cultural diffusion. Silk Road. Ancient trade routes helped spread goods, religions, and ideas between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Colonial influence. Spanish colonization introduced Catholicism and the Spanish language to Latin America. Globalization. Fast food chains like McDonald's have adapted their menus to local cultures worldwide. Diasporas. Jewish and African diasporas have profoundly influenced global culture, particularly in art and music. Music, jazz, born in the US, has roots in African and European traditions. Cultural identity, flag symbolism. Colors and symbols on flags often represent a nation's history or values. National holidays. Bastille Day in France commemorates a key moment in its revolutionary history. Rituals. Coming-of-age ceremonies like Japan's Seijin Shiki reflect cultural values of maturity. Language preservation. Efforts to revive languages like Irish and Maori help sustain cultural identities. Ethnic enclaves. Neighborhoods like Chinatown or Little Italy in cities preserve immigrant cultures. Cultural conflicts and adaptations. Borders. Colonial-era borders in Africa often ignored cultural and ethnic divisions, leading to conflicts. Urbanization. Migration to cities creates cultural hybrids, but may erode rural traditions. Religious tensions. Conflicts in the Middle East often intertwine cultural and political disputes. Cultural assimilation. Immigrant populations often face pressure to adopt dominant cultural norms. Tourism. Over-tourism can dilute local cultures, but also spreads awareness of cultural heritage. Cultural innovations. Agriculture. Indigenous peoples in Mesoamerica domesticated crops like maize, now a global staple. Music instruments. The African djembe drum is now used in global music genres. Technology. Cultural traditions like storytelling have evolved with media like film and social platforms. Festivals. Carnival in Brazil combines African, Portuguese, and indigenous influences. Literature. The 1001 Nights reflects centuries of Middle Eastern storytelling. Geographical influences on culture climate. Scandinavian saunas originated in cold climates for warmth and relaxation. Natural resources. Oil wealth shapes the culture and economy of Gulf nations. Mountains. The Himalayas have historically isolated Tibetan culture, preserving its uniqueness. Rivers. The Nile influenced Egyptian culture, serving as a source of life and a trade route. Deserts. Nomadic Bedouin cultures adapted to life in arid environments with camel-based economies. World religions. Hinduism originated in the Indus Valley and profoundly shaped Indian culture. Buddhism spread from India to East Asia, adapting to local cultures in Tibet, China, and Japan. Christianity. Roman roads helped spread Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. Islam The spread of Islam through trade routes connected regions from Africa to Southeast Asia. Judaism, one of the oldest monotheistic religions, shaping traditions in the Middle East and beyond. Modern cultural trends. Pop culture. South Korea's K-pop has become a global cultural phenomenon. Sports, soccer, football, is the most popular sport globally, reflecting shared cultural passions. Digital nomads. Technology enables people to work remotely, blending cultural practices. Fashion. Global fashion weeks in Paris, Milan, and New York influence trends worldwide. Sustainability. Indigenous cultures often provide models for sustainable living practices. Sacred spaces. The Ganges River is considered sacred in Hinduism and is a site of rituals and pilgrimages. Terraced farming. The rice terraces of the Philippines are cultural landscapes shaped by traditional farming practices. Cities. Venice, Italy, is a cultural landscape shaped by its canals, reflecting the adaptation to its watery environment. Agrarian cultures. In regions like sub-Saharan Africa, cultural identity is tied to agricultural cycles and practices. Nomadism. Nomadic cultures like the Mongols traditionally rely on herding and adapt to harsh environments. Cultural diffusion and exchange fusion. Cuisine. Mexican food blends indigenous, Spanish, and African influences. Trade. Ancient trade routes like the Trans-Saharan Network facilitated the spread of Islam into Africa. Sports diffusion. Cricket, introduced by British colonizers, is now central to the culture of South Asia and the Caribbean. Migration. The Irish diaspora brought Irish culture, music, and festivals like St. Patrick's Day worldwide. Global festivals. Oktoberfest in Germany has inspired similar festivals in countries like Brazil and the US cultural identity and symbols art forms. Aboriginal dot painting in Australia reflects the spiritual connection to the land. Cultural icons. The Statue of Liberty is both a national symbol of the US and a global symbol of freedom. Music genres. Reggae music, originating in Jamaica, carries cultural and political messages. Indigenous languages. Efforts to preserve languages like Navajo highlight the importance of cultural identity. Traditional dance. Flamenco in Spain is a cultural expression of emotion and history. Cultural change. Industrialization. Rapid industrial growth in 19th century Europe transformed cultural practices and urban life. Urban sprawl. Suburbanization has shaped modern lifestyles and altered traditional rural cultures. Cultural imperialism. Hollywood's global influence spreads American culture worldwide. Acculturation. Japanese culture adopted Western practices like baseball while maintaining traditional customs. Digital culture. Social media has created global communities, transcending geographic boundaries. Regional diversity. Alaskan cultures. Indigenous groups like the Inuit have unique traditions tied to Arctic environments. Caribbean identity. The region's culture reflects a mix of African, European, and indigenous influences. Middle Eastern souks. Traditional markets reflect regional trade practices and cultural interactions. Festivals of light. Celebrations like Diwali in India and Hanukkah in Jewish culture highlight the role of light in cultural traditions. Cultural resilience. Despite centuries of colonization, indigenous cultures in Latin America continue to thrive and adapt. Multilingual societies. Switzerland has 4 official languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh, reflecting its cultural diversity. Religious syncretism. In Latin America, indigenous beliefs have blended with Christianity to create unique practices like Dia de los Muertos. Tea cultures. Tea is central to cultures worldwide, from Japan's tea ceremonies to Britain's afternoon tea traditions. Cultural boundaries. The Balkans are known as a cultural crossroads where East meets West, blending European and Ottoman influences. Dance traditions. The haka, a traditional Maori dance, is both a cultural expression and a symbol of strength, often performed by New Zealand's rugby teams. Cultural landscapes and the environment rainforest tribes. Indigenous Amazonian tribes like the Yanomami have lifestyles deeply connected to the rainforest. Arctic cultures. The Sami people of Northern Europe have adapted to the Arctic environment with traditions like reindeer herding. Island cultures. Polynesian navigation techniques relied on stars, winds, and ocean currents long before modern tools. Modern cultural phenomena. Cultural hybridization. Global music genres like Afrobeat combine African rhythms with Western instruments and styles. Cultural tourism. UNESCO World Heritage Sites, like the Great Wall of China and Machu Picchu, attract millions of visitors, showcasing the global importance of preserving cultural landmarks. Cultural traditions and practices. Tattoos and identity. Many indigenous cultures, such as the Maori and the Polynesians, use tattoos as a form of cultural identity and storytelling. Culinary rituals. In Ethiopia, coffee ceremonies are an essential cultural tradition, symbolizing hospitality and social bonding. Marriage traditions. In India, wedding ceremonies often span multiple days and include elaborate rituals based on regional and religious customs. Martial arts and culture. Many martial arts, such as Kung Fu in China and Capoeira in Brazil, are deeply tied to cultural history and philosophy. Cultural symbols and heritage mythology, and national identity. Greek mythology continues to influence modern culture, from literature to national symbols like the Olympic Games. Folk music and storytelling. Many cultures use folk music to preserve historical events and traditions, such as Irish ballads and Appalachian folk songs. Oral traditions. African griots, storytellers, have passed down history and cultural values through spoken word for generations. Cultural adaptation and change. Urban street art. Graffiti and street murals are used worldwide to express social and political messages, with cities like Berlin and São Paulo known for their street art scenes. Fast fashion versus traditional attire. The rise of fast fashion has influenced traditional clothing markets, yet many cultures still preserve their unique attire, such as the Scottish kilt or the Indian sari. Language evolution. Languages constantly evolve. For example, English has absorbed thousands of words from other languages due to trade, migration, and colonization. Geographic and environmental influences on culture. Monsoon. Culture. In South Asia, monsoons shape agricultural cycles, festivals, and daily life, with celebrations like Onam in Kerala marking the season. Volcanic island cultures. Many island nations, such as Iceland and Hawaii, have traditions, myths, and lifestyles shaped by volcanic activity. Modern cultural expressions. Internet memes as digital folklore. Social media has created a new form of cultural expression, with memes acting as a modern way to share humor, social commentary, and cultural identity.